Yeah, mine.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, they're all have it on.
I went and sent him the name.
ready?
Okay. Call to order this regular meeting of the Bandera Economic Development Corporation, Thursday, April 23rd, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. We have new member Lee Correll, welcome. Darcy Hasty, welcome. Rhonda Correll, which that's kind of funny. Laura Davenport, Andrea Jacob, I did it again. Jankowski, I'm gonna get it. I was practicing all day. And Lynn Palmer, all present, and Meg Lamb, the EDC administrator. So we have, just to put it on record, on Tuesday at 3 p.m., the city secretary sworn in our new members. So they are all official to go. We have the Pledge of Allegiance, so we'll stand. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So one little thing on the consent agenda, we had a little hiccup with the meetings, so you probably noticed the minutes were not in your packets. So we will have all the meetings minutes next week at Thursday at 6 o'clock and everything. So the only thing that you would be looking at is the financials that you received in your packet that you guys sent. Entertain motion for financials.
So you want a motion for that? Okay, I make a motion that we complete the financials.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Oh, no, we can't discuss with the consent agenda. So those in favor? All in favor, any opposed? None opposed. Okay. So item 5, discussion and possible action regarding City of Bandera City Council resolution authorizing a program of certain financial assistance to be distributed as grants, loans, a line of credit, or other financial assistance to be used for employee retention and other eligible expenditures for the businesses located within the City of Bandera in response to the COVID-19 outbreak.
Motion to move.
Motion.
To move to discuss.
Okay, Lynn makes the motion. Second. Thank you, Darcy. Okay, Lynn, you've got the floor.
First of all, I have a question about, I know that when City Council asked the EDC to come up with a program for the COVID-19, I thought that we were going to wait, and you may be able to answer this question. I thought that we were going to wait for the, federal financial funding from the government. So what happened with that? If somebody can answer.
I can answer that. What happened was, all along we knew that the federal funding was slow and limited, and we were asked to see what funds the EDC had. When it was first discussed at council, it was shown an urgency. By the time the second time it came up in council, there were council members that mentioned maybe we should wait for the federal funding. So what we came up with is the fact that we had been getting a lot of information, and those of us that have been here within the discussion now can don't have the floor to kind of correct me or add to it, but when we had our discussion, by the time we started doing this and the city council had sent us a resolution on what we could do, and it was specifically asked by the mayor to give a budget and a total amount per business in order to fill in the blanks for the resolution. And that's what came to council last week for the second reading. And so that's what we did. And so we felt like the 100,000, the maximum 1,000 per business was something that we could do to kind of help the businesses hold over until the federal funding came. And then we also were under the impression that we were going to get some specific money in the EDC distributed to the EDCs, not just through the SBA loans and the banks and things, but we might get some through, Texas had to request it. And so then it would come specifically to the EDCs, and then the EDCs would distribute from that.
Right.
And that would be a round two, because, and we would do it a little more criteria-based, size of business, how many employees, that type of thing, and have a little more criteria. But for the second round, we would have all of the applications already. We have already kind of discussed it, and that was our plan all along.
So what is the status of the funding, do you know? The status of which governmental federal
So
funding for the
the last
EDC?
I heard, according to the news, SBA is out of money, and the EDC the ones that are coming to the EDC has not been funded at all.
And they're not going to be funded,
I
you don't
didn't say
think?
that. I said that. I just know that
Okay.
there's been no specifics.
Okay.
So we're still in limbo.
Okay,
I'd also just like to add that I know each of the banks, I've been communicating with them to kind of get an update. They all have applications sitting on their desk that were not funded the first go around.
right, and I have one as well. I know that I know for sure that one of the banks got $20 million, so I don't know how much the rest of the banks are getting, but that was quite a bit of money for a small bank. And that they are waiting for that second surge. One of my applications is on the desk as well for PPP. We're trying to get that. So
It's my opinion, and I think it was the board's consensus that what we didn't know,
Mhm.
and our businesses needed it now. And we didn't have a whole lot, but we can help them at least, help them with their first month's rent, and then hopefully buy a little bit of time and do some more stuff. Did you okay, go ahead, Laura.
I was just also going to add that, Lynn, you did text me back in the middle of March asking if the EDC could do something.
right,
So we were trying to be proactive
right.
at that time. And just talking to some of our local businesses, I mean, one of the local businesses told me this week, she said, I went down to my last $3.
Well, what I would like to
others have
concentrate.
said $10, anything would help.
Right.
Just please, if y'all could help, just give us anything. So what we're proposing, we knew wasn't going to be a bailout, but it was going to be a stimulus to help. I mean, because buy some time, because it's taking a while for this money to trickle down, and first of May's going to be here before we know it, and it's going to be another month's rent, another month's utilities. So it was just meant to be a stimulus.
Well, in my opinion, I think we need to be more of a response to this crisis than a reaction. And I felt, in my personal opinion, that was a reaction. So I would like to create a response now so that we can help our businesses just as soon as we can. So can we go on to the budget, or?
We have other people
Okay.
wanting to
Oh, I'm so
discuss.
sorry.
So
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
we got new people. Lots of people have new action. And you've actually been around, so
You're right.
I can imagine what Darcy
My
and Lee have to
apologies.
ask. But Darcy, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, well, watching, I'm a news fanatic, so I'm always watching the news, whether it's state, local, federal news. So I know the state's rolling out with more money. Hopefully some of it will trickle down to little old Bandera. We can only pray for that, right? And we all do that every day. I know I do. And we've got more federal money coming also that'll hopefully trickle down to the state and trickle down to us as well. So our folks have got to have some help. And, I feel like it's our job as the EDC to make sure that they get something, even if it's a little. I've got to admit that when I first heard $1,000 for 100 businesses, well, what's that going to do? How's that going to help anybody? But I had no idea it was gonna help or last this long either, you know, and it's gonna last a while longer, so, you know, at least a couple of more weeks minimum, you know, and probably longer than that, so my belief that we've got to give them some help and come up with another plan behind it, not just this one.
And I believe what you're talking about, Darcy, is the 484 billion relief packet that's supposed to be passed possibly in the Senate today, and well, it was in the Senate and it's in the House, it's waiting to be passed in the House. So that'll be a lot of funding and hopefully trickle down to our businesses in the city of Bandera as well.
I'm looking at it from a different standpoint, probably in that I don't think everyone needs to be bailed out. I think there are plenty of businesses in town that can weather this storm. They do not need this money. They can pay their rent, they can pay their utilities, they can work from home. I don't think it should be across the board a check for everybody just because. I think that this money belongs to businesses. They're the ones who created it. They have spent money on inventory, on employees, on everything else to get this money in the first place. That's who is behind all this money. So I think we need to look at it really, really meticulous and put the money who deserves it the most. It's not about need, it's about who deserves it. And in my opinion, sole proprietors who this is their sole source of income is this business. They are the ones I think we need to help first. Other businesses in town, people have other sources of income. Their husband makes a lot of money. They are on Social Security. They have disability. They have retirement income. They have capital gains. They have dividends. They have other sources of income, and they don't need this money. I think it's everyone throws their hands out. Oh, I'm going to go apply because it's free money. Well, yeah, it is free money, but it needs to be distributed to the people who deserve it.
I just want to respond a little bit to that. I'm wholeheartedly I agree, I'm in agreement up to a point. It's a very difficult thing to define on who deserves and who doesn't. And you would encourage someone to lie or to calm the system as opposed to, like you have to rely on people on what they give you for information, and then you start getting all of the talk around town about, well, they don't deserve it, blah, 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 blah. So when you put the word deserve in there, I think it has a little bit of a weird connotation that can't be proven, it can't be quantified, it can't be not across the board and not quickly. And the other thing is that I don't know if it came across or if you had a chance to listen or read the things that we had submitted before, but we really did say that first come, first serve for the tax, the people that have the sales tax, because that's what funds our budget. The businesses that collect sales tax, a half of their percent that they collect and submit to the comptroller feeds our budget. So those were definitely the primary ones. And then if we had money left over, we would say, okay, these are the people left, or these are the people that we think deserve it. They didn't apply. Are they too proud? Are they, what is it? What is it? They've been closed. So maybe it was something that we sought them out and asked them, did you get the memo? And then the other piece is that I just want to say this one thing because I don't remember who it wasn't something you specifically said, Lee, but when I serve on city council and when I serve on EDC, it's a very different mindset. The taxpayer, the properties, the business owners, they own property, they're giving inventory tax, all of that flows through the CAT, that type of assessment. To me, that's a very different fund than a use tax. And the use tax, our 0.5% for EDC, is specifically for economic development. And I said in the last meeting, we're almost in economic recon. We're in recovery mode. And so any little bit of money that we put into a small business And I keep small, because, I mean, you know, a lot of our box stores have not had to shut down, you know, and they're the ones that give us the majority of our sales tax. So we're, you know, we're hoping not to be quite as impacted. So they weren't really considered off the bat. We're talking about the little ones that make Bandera, the little boutiques, the ones that are struggling, the ones that, that when all of this is over, that we're still Bandera because they're still here. Those are the ones that we were looking at as a priority. And I don't know if you heard that conversation or not, but I just kind of wanted to say that.
I think Darcy had her hand up
I'm
first.
sorry.
but-
So go ahead, Darcy.
Thank you. So I was gonna say that you can quantify it to a certain extent in that we have a point system. I think that if you do a point system on the application, we ask questions on the application. I have done that today and yesterday, and then yesterday I lost the application that I built, so I put a bunch of the questions back on there that I just typed out after it got lost. But so, and then we can put points along with that, and it kind of bumps people up based on that, and then we can see where we're at with the money. And some of those things would be like what Lee said, you know, do you have another source of income? If that's something that we want to put on the application, if it's something we don't want to put on there, okay, we decide not to put it on there. But something like, you know, business like OST, I know some of us might be passionate about certain businesses because we feel like they make Bandera. Maybe that's something that we want to put on the application, and it may bump it up because it's historic to Bandera. It's been here almost 100 years. You know, things like, do you have plans to move your business outside the city of Bandera in the next 24 months? That is something that we need to consider when we think about giving them money. Because if they plan on moving in the next 2 years, then yeah, they can lie. Just like people we see do that for food stamps or whatever else. In my career, like people I meet every single day, and they lie, but that's on them. We ask the questions, we base it on the criteria that we want to set forth, and go from there. And then that's how we can decide who gets the money first.
And I agree with Darcy as well. And if I could have permission to pass out some information that I had printed out, and it has kind of an application with a lot of information. One of I got it off Hondo's website. They have an excellent setup there for COVID-19. For COVID-19. And one of the things that they do have, and I'll pass this out to you, is eligibility and qualifications. So eligible industries may include retail, storefront, food and beverage, personal care, barbershops, nail salons, automobile maintenance, health and wellness, art galleries. You know, our quilt gallery could maybe fall under that art gallery. And this also includes small manufacturing businesses. And we can, you know, make that fit what we need to use out of that. National chains, financial institutions, RV parks, apartment complexes, home-based businesses, permanently closed businesses, and nonprofit organizations are not eligible for the grant. So, and I'm just going to pass these out to you just so that you have it. So that gives us a criteria as well to work from. And you know, there's a lot of really good information I'd like to be able to go over with in this meeting with Tony's permission, of course. It's just a really good setup on that Hondo website. Another area is there's the review process. There's a sample application that we could add to that application more information that we want. It needs to be a comprehensive application with a lot of teeth in it. I think that's the only thing. That's the only way the city council would accept it.
Well, the application that we put out before, I mean, it was very.
I've got a copy of it.
May I finish my sentence? It was very short. It was very to the point. We talked in depth about what we wanted on there, and it really was for the first round. And it was to prove that they were legitimate business collecting sales tax or not, and whether they were closed or not. And it was never the intention to just leave it at that for the round two. It was something that would be able to be quickly filled out, and it would be something that would have information readily available, and it would be easily reviewed on our side as well. Because as you know, if we're going to do a point system, it's going to take quite a bit of time to take in all these applications, parse out all the data, give the point system, and then by that time, somebody else has by that time we're 2 months into it. I mean, we're already 6 months in and we haven't done anything. I mean, 6 weeks in and we haven't done anything. I mean, we've done nothing but volley back and forth. So so the application we did was something just quick to see who was interested, whether or not they were closed, whether they were collecting sales tax. It wasn't stated that we weren't going to go ask other information for further down the road. So. Any other questions or comments?
But it didn't even address the situation of other income. I mean,
You're right.
What if? You're just writing checks for $1,000 here and there, and half the people don't need it.
Right.
When their $1,000 could have bumped up somebody to $2,000, who did? And that's my point. It was just, there was no criteria in place.
And it was intended that way.
It was intended.
I mean,
And do you think that is, I find that reckless.
and that is,
Because
you may find that reckless, but that's your opinion.
because that is, just outpouring of our dollars that we have collected, just letting it go. We don't know what's going to happen here. We don't know how sales taxes are going to decline. I think spending $100,000 out of your cash on hand, which are $251 now, that's a lot of money. And I think
I'm not going to disagree.
and it's going to take months to recoup it. And I also think we need to take baby steps. I don't think we need to throw out $100,000. I think we need to start with $50,000 because there's other things that are going to come up that our businesses are going to need our help, and that is unemployment tax. It's going to be a big deal. So I think we need to look to the future and not spend this money so fast. I think we need to spend it carefully.
The previous board and our thoughts were, who are we to decide who needs it and who doesn't? I mean, you may think someone has a lot of money, but you really don't know their financial situation. And who are we to say which business,
That needs
we
to
should
be
say
part
or
of the
we shouldn't say?
application
Maybe,
process.
we're just trying to take the bias out.
But I feel as though that needs to be part of the application process. Anytime the banks, any lenders, anybody is going to ask for financials, they're going to ask
But
a lot of
no,
personal.
that wasn't our intent.
Which was
at all.
exactly-
You're missing
No,
what our intent was.
Well, and I'm saying I do see your intent, but I'm saying you're writing a check for $1,000 to people who do not need it.
But they had to
We didn't do
apply.
it yet. I mean, we didn't do that.
I know.
Yeah, because we didn't go through the criteria, so you don't know you can't say who we were and weren't going to sign checks to.
Oh, absolutely. But
So,
it was
I
my
mean,
understanding that
let's try not to be
it was
accusatory.
going to be the checks to whoever applied.
No,
We were
That
still
was
going
not-
to go through all the
Yeah,
applications.
we had-
and vet it and
we had
all
very
that.
specific businesses that we were going to focus on. That we have approximately 100. We weeded out the big ones that hadn't closed, that didn't collect sales tax. We have a list of the businesses, and we were going to focus on the ones that collected sales tax and different criteria. I mean, we just didn't get that far because nobody ever let us get that far. So I think Lynn.
I was just gonna say that I think most of those issues that I'm concerned about and Lee's concerned about can be answered in a more comprehensive application. And then we can decide where the needs are.
Okay, well, here's my, I mean, my point of view on it is, I agree with everybody. I agree with y'all, and I also agree with what the previous board did. $1,000 is not gonna save anybody's business here. I had to go back to work this is just my own personal experience with all this. I had to go back to work and get a job to pay the bills at that bakery. So half of my salary at my doctor's job pays bills at that bakery. But I don't want to close my business because I like having the bakery. I like being here. So I see your point in it, but there comes a time when, like now, I don't know that the bakery will be open in another month. So, and that's what these people are facing. We don't know who's going to be able to open up. We may be looking at a ghost town before all this is over. And we can't guarantee that we're going to get the federal funding. So it's like, what do? You can't, whose business is more important than another person's business? And that's the way these people will be thinking of it.
I think moving forward that we want this economic development corporation to function in a different way. We want it to be a little more concise and a little more detailed on where the money, how the money is spent and who is receiving the money, and the criteria and the eligibility for them to receive the funds. We can set up in an application. We can do it for
Ma'am,
one or four
Can you
employees.
define we in those
Oh,
sentences?
I apologize.
Who is
We
we?
as the board, but you're right. That doesn't mean that the whole board. That's
What
just
board,
my
the
opinion.
council?
No.
This,
Oh, no. You mean the criteria?
no, you said we want this board.
Well,
We
I know that the city council would like to see more accountability. They would like to see more accountability. They would like to see an application with more teeth in it before funds are dispersed.
And who is we?
The
Who is
city
coun-
council.
I know, but that council has never made a decision or a consensus or discussed it or given us any direction as a whole,
And that's what my point was last week.
which
if
is
the
exactly
city
what we've been going
council-
through since December.
If the city council wants to be a part of it, then this needs to be a workshop, because nothing's ever going to get done, because they're going to keep denying what we're doing.
And I'm not trying to pick.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
just
not
trying to
either.
stay,
I
I'm
think
trying
it
to
should
stick
be
with
done
facts.
as a whole, so we know exactly what.
Yeah, because we
is
don't,
expected.
we're fine with working with whatever. When,
Okay, I don't want to go back to the past. What we're concentrating now on is the funding that you want to do for the COVID-19 stimulus.
okay,
And that was what you present, when this came to city council, and we asked where the funding came from, and you couldn't answer the question, that was the reason why we didn't move forward. But I don't want to go backwards.
so
I want to
I'm
set
not
the
trying to go
precedent
backwards. Hold on.
as an EDC board on what the application should look like for the people that are going to be recipients of this money going forward. And that is what I would like to concentrate on in this meeting.
Nobody was going backwards. You were speaking for a council that clearly did not make a motion or make a consensus. So when you say we, a lot of the people in this room don't understand that you were speaking for you in conversations that you've had with other council members, and it has never been a direction. So we're not moving for, I'm not trying to go back. I'm definitely trying to live in the present and have the facts that we have right now. And we were told, how much money can you as an EDC can pull from other accounts? What's your top budget and how many per business? And those were the numbers we gave. And you're right, I did not have the full resolution that said exactly which account it came from. So,
We weren't asked for that either.
no, it's true. It's true. It was explained to me as a very different process than what it became in that meeting. And so it was not explained as a council. It was explained by one person. I was taking my direction from the mayor of exactly what she needed from me from the second reading. And so here we are. We're back here with the third meeting again. So
Let's move forward.
I am moving forward.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that everybody knows that hasn't been involved in this process, that when you say that, you're speaking for you, you're not saying speaking for the council.
Okay, I will withdraw the we, and I'm speaking for myself. And I would really like to move forward.
Me too. Me too. Darcy.
So I think from what I'm hearing from everybody, I really think that we can please everyone by having kind of a middle ground and do, I don't know that it fits necessarily what Lee wants, but I still think that we do need to get money out to businesses. I don't know that we need to necessarily fill out $100,000, but who knows until we start getting applications in. I do agree with Lynn in that we do need an application with more teeth in it. And I think all of us can agree to that. I think Lee would agree with that too. We've got to have something where these people are telling us why they want the money and not make it so easy for them just to quickly fill out. And I want something on there that tells me what else they've tried for. Because if they're not looking for state funding, they're not looking for federal funding, they're not looking for funding anywhere else, they don't need the damn money. So if you're not trying anywhere else and you're just looking for $1,000 that the EDC can give you, you're obviously not hurting that bad, to me. That's my opinion of it. So that's where I'm at.
I think, Rhonda, I understand your position here, and I think that would be a section part of the application that would be under special circumstances. In that I am funding my business right now by working outside. I think that those are the kind of things that need to be known on this application. And I also think this money should be earmarked for rent and utilities. I think that people who have employees can get funding through PPP and other sources. But I think right now, if we could reimburse businesses that have already paid their rent, they've already paid their utilities, and get that process that we know that this money is going to help the business, then that's the approach. Then that's the approach I think we need to take as far as reimbursements of those expenses directly related to your business.
It's the same thing. Yeah, we had on there, do you qualify for SBA? Were you approved or not? That was on the application to start that conversation on whether or not people were trying to
And
get
we
other
did
funding.
put on there, it was mortgage payments. I did utilities, but I think we did mortgage payments or get up to something with.
I think that was the second phase.
Yes.
The first phase was just the $1,000 to 100 businesses, and I think you had 85 applicants, didn't you?
Rhonda has-
Well, we had, the last time we sent 2 different ones. It wasn't first or second. We were hoping y'all would.
They didn't, so just for you know, they wouldn't meet again.
Okay.
They refused.
Oh, so y'all-
They refused to meet.
But they have it now, right? The 2 different
I don't,
options
I'm sure, it was in
our packet.
Yeah, I mean, it was,
Okay.
It was more like options,
It was, yeah, it wasn't first phase, second phase. It was, if y'all didn't want to do the 100 businesses or 86 or whatever, that's okay. So the second phase was for like a month's rent or up to whatever.
so Laura had her hand up before.
Go ahead.
Is this in this conversation or?
It's in this
Okay, go ahead.
conversation. I would also just like, if we're gonna make the application a little bit more specific, there's a lot of businesses who fall in the cracks. And I think we need to, you know, they may have tried to apply for some of these, especially some of the ones that are like independent contractors, self-employed. We need to have that on the application as well. Sure.
Lynn?
And I think that's gonna also fall under on who's gonna be eligible to receive money. And if you do get a chance to go through this, it does address sole proprietors. It does address 1 to 4 employees. It addresses 5 to 10 employees to the maximum of 25 employees.
Darcy? Yeah, because that's gonna, I mean, I'd like to see us be taking into consideration realtors and stuff like that too, because the real estate business, from what I understand, not that I'm a realtor, but from what I understand, because I have a lot of friends that are realtors, I mean, it's tanked too. I mean, who's gonna go buy a house right now if you don't know if you're gonna have a job or, you know, whatever. So it's hurting them too. So if they're filing 1099s or whatever, and I know that they can get unemployment. Here's also some things, they all kind of fall into that same line. Yeah, so we need to be able to consider them as well.
I was just gonna say, I think real estate is doing very well right now in Bandera because everybody wants to move here. They want to get out of San Antonio,
They don't
out of
want us.
Houston. So I have a feeling that our economy is gonna bounce back pretty good in the next, by the end of the year, I think our economy is gonna be pretty strong. I really do. So,
Any other
what
comments?
can you? Can we go over the budget now where you were thinking about pulling out? Can we start there? Oh, I do have one more.
That's fine. It's all under one agenda item. It's not. broken
Yeah,
out. So
that's what I
fine.
thought that we were gonna be able to discuss. The one thing that I do want to bring up, and I know that this has been a contention with the EDC board, but I think it's very, in my opinion, very important that we include a clawback clause. And I know that there has been some input about, oh, well, that would be hard to collect that money. Oh,
We have them in our performance agreement.
Okay,
It's in
good.
there. It's in
okay,
there.
because I'm thinking maybe we could include that they need to be, after they receive the funding, that they should be in business up to 6 months. And if they can't stay in business for the 6 months, then they owe that money back to the city. Or not to the city, but to the EDC. And I know that you say, how are we gonna collect that? Well, I guess it is also gonna depend on how they are going to be filing that money with their taxes. How are they gonna, is that gonna be considered a gift? Is it gonna be considered something that they have to have a 1099 with? But Laura, I see your expression over there. I file in small claims court all the time by myself on my own when people don't pay their debts. It's a simple procedure that you go to the JP court for.
I'm
And if,
familiar with it.
I'm sorry.
I'm very.
Oh, okay, so I don't need to tell you. And then it can go on to county court. And if they don't pay that debt, if they go to borrow any money from a bank, that debt comes up and they have to pay that. They have to pay that before they can get any money from the bank. So that's how that clawback clause would work.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll leave the discussion on the budget. Does anybody have any questions on the budget? And the account numbers, listed in the resolution, and then you got a copy of the budget, so that's where we're pulling. We propose pulling the money from.
Thank you for saying that, by the way.
No problem.
Last time. So.
Any questions? Any other discussions, Ryan? See if we can write in Darcy's eyes. I would do it, but then I'd stumble over Laura. I think it's on this side.
It's kind of hard.
I notice stuff like that, like even when I'm in a restaurant, I see somebody with bright in their eyes, it's like I tell what you can close that and get it out there.
You're absolutely
Okay,
right.
anyway, so any other?
You got a splinter?
Yeah, right off that thing. Kleenex right there.
The recommendations from the last meeting.
Yeah.
Anybody, yeah.
They're on there, that's what we're.
Anybody have any comments on that?
So is it a consensus that this $100,000 be requested out of these budget line items? Is that, and does everyone think $100,000 needs to be spent?
Yeah, we were just creating the line item for $100. We never, if we didn't need to spend the 400, we weren't going to.
Is this the portion that we can ask questions about each line item?
Sure.
Okay, because I didn't want to miss it. So can you go through that Tony, each line item that the money was taken out of and what that line item? I just have it on the resolution where the
And that's
money
exactly
was.
what it is, $4,000 from advertising,
And so-
$4,000 from travel
Okay,
research.
so advertising,
Is that not clear? It's advertising.
okay,
I mean, it's like we have an advertising budget for EDC, so if we
Yes.
were to ever, decide we needed to advertise something for, what we were doing, or maybe we wanted to advertise for a
Come to
particular,
Bandera.
come to Bandera,
oh, okay,
whatever,
so
maybe.
that would be above what the visitor center, the money that they get for advertising,
Yes,
this
we
is
don't
just
give
for the
us-
EDC.
We don't give the visitor center, that they're funded by the county.
Okay.
We don't give them any money, but we give this is not, our promotions advertising where we give little groups and organizations for their event, that's 10% of our budget, that's promotions. This is specifically EDC, if we decided that we wanted to do an ad for something, whatever it would be.
Okay, and so if we take 4,000 at that, can you also address what will be left in that line
Zero.
item?
And that goes
Well, it
back,
looks like 943 is according to the budget.
No, it's 5,000.
it's got 57, yeah, it would be,
49,
yeah,
42.
943. So, so you get it.
So can we go through each one and describe what we use that for and why that money's available and why it doesn't have, why we can use it in this packet? That's what I would like to know.
Well, the reason is because we have you allocate different money because you have a plan to be an economic development corporation. So you put a little bit of money in here in this advertising fund. So if we decided to do some kind of, I don't know, like an event that we wanted to get the businesses to come and maybe we wanted to get a speaker or somebody or have other towns come and pay us money, we hire a speaker to speak about economic development or something like that, we would spend advertising funds on communication for that. So that
And
would
do
be,
you have anything like in the works right now for that?
we don't have anything in the works right now because we've done nothing since the beginning of the year.
Okay,
We were halted.
We had some,
We
had
halted,
some
we were
things
halted
in
for
mind
quite some time.
Okay. That's
when
fine.
we did the budget.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have-
There
So
was
we had a lot of
definitely things in
different things in
mind
mind.
when we did the budget.
All of that is out the window. We didn't spend most of it, and now we're in COVID-19. So you can assume that there's nothing allocated.
Yes, ma'am. Can we go on to the travel and research and education?
That is for like TMO conferences and that type of thing.
And you're taking 4,000 from that, and that's gonna leave what over there, leave? Or
Zero.
yeah, that means that.
Yeah.
So it depletes that. So no money for travel, research, and education.
Correct. The audit fees, we don't always know when the audit's happening, and as far as fiscal years, so we typically keep 2 times that. If for some reason they kind of overlap to where we pay an audit close to the other one, then it's $2,500 is what it's costing us right now for an audit, and so we had an extra $2,500 in there if we had to pay something for the next one. And the engineering fees, that's for different things, if projects we were to sponsor, like for instance, if something was to happen at Mansfield Park, we funded the study that they did, the feasibility study.
Yes,
If they wanted some sort of engineering fees to go in and do soil samples and asked us to do
Yes,
that or
uh-huh.
something, that would have come out of that account.
And we're using everything out of that one, the 10,000.
Correct. Consulting fees, we had an idea to where our books are going on 4 years old. We've got a census coming up. There's a lot of data in there that was compiled based on 2010 census, and then with we were going to do the bylaws and the process and procedures. So we had that in there if we needed to pay a consultant to come in and redo our books like we did last time to update them. So that's what the
You're
consultant
talking
fees.
about the manuals.
The manuals, yeah, the manuals.
And that
And that
leaves
would include,
zero in that account after we.
so that would zero out that.
Okay.
That would include the doing business in Bandera. We have a little packet, so when new businesses
yeah,
come to town,
Yeah,
they keep it here in the city, and it talks about, it has everything like electric company, gas company, all of the information they would need if they didn't know much about Bandera and they were coming to set it up. It has all of the contact information in there. It gives a little speculation about who we are, as there's like median and income and that kind of stuff, and all of that would have needed to have been redone with the new census information.
So we could do it, maybe possibly have the funds to do it next year though.
which,
Okay.
so maintenance and repairs, we have various equipment, we've got, land that mows, that kind of stuff. We did buy a tractor for the city, and with that agreement, they mow all of our property with it, and they are able to use that for what they need as well. So, but if for some reason that tractor needed repairs, and, you know, this is, you know, it's our tractor, we needed it to them, but, so anyway, we exhausted that with the 5,000, so that would be down to 0.
So if something happened to that tractor,
Well, then we'd have to figure it out.
we wouldn't be able to repair it.
Well, no, that's not true, we just do, I mean, we're
We
just,
wouldn't have, but is it EDC money that exclusively repairs that tractor?
it was an example that I gave you of things that we would have maintenance and repair for. Another one would be the parking lot. We've been trying to get the parking lot repaved and striped. That would be maintenance and repairs.
Okay,
I just give one example.
okay, so, thank you. And then the unrestricted, 48,012.
Yeah, so that was one of the things that the previous council had, we had an unrestricted thing that was, we used to itemize out like how many facade agreements or how many facades we would do, how many building infrastructures. And then we had kind of an unrestricted that was still along those lines of giving grants, but it wasn't specified as to what type of grant. So the unrestricted fund would have been just for generic performance agreements.
Okay, and we're zeroing that one out as well.
City master plan, we have 25,000 for, as long as I've been on the EDC, we've put 25,000 toward the master plan. There is no master plan, so that's been zeroed out as well. City park upgrades, the last upgrades that we granted was right at the end of last year. So we were able to do a budget amendment and have the baseball field and the things that they're doing down there. There's been nothing this year that has come to us, so we took the whole 10,000 and then 25,000 in incentives that we have not granted out yet. Totals 100,000. Darcy?
The only thing that I was concerned about looking at this was the master plan, because I know how important it is for the city. So with that being on here, you said that it's been on there every year.
Yeah, so at the EDC, you have to be really careful. I mean, there's very specific things that we can spend our money on. City projects, we can support that as long as they accomplish certain things. Like for the park itself, we can fund parks all day long. And the master plan has always had its own little kind of a city park sort of master plan, sub-master plan to the bigger one. And so we have allocated that money all along just because that piece of the master plan seemed to be the one that was the most put together, improved, and what was it?
Comprehensive master
Comprehensive.
plan,
It was
yeah.
just, well, the comprehensive wasn't there, but this little piece to the city park, they had,
Just for the
Mr.
park,
Barlow
yes.
did just the park.
Mhm.
And he did a vision of a kind of a step progress. And so if the city had ever decided that they wanted to do some of those steps and move forward toward his design, or pick a piece, we had $25,000 that they could come ask for us to help.
Okay, so it was just because it hadn't come asked for. It's not like we're taking anything away.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And
That was
they-
my
No,
concern.
like it would be there again next year.
So we gave them probably more than, I don't remember the budget last year, but we had exhausted the 25,000 for some of the park improvements that were done last year. And then the tractor thing came, or then the baseball thing came up and the diamond, and that we wanted to do that down there. And they came to us and presented and said, you know, we've got the crew that wants to build it from scratch. You know, this is what it compares to if we have somebody come do it. This is what it will cost us if we do it. And so we agreed with it, and we did a budget amendment right at the end of the year. And we took the money that we didn't use and put it. So there was ended up being more than 25,000 last year toward the city park. But that's what we did. But that's why we're still pending receipts in that, but it's not this year's money. It's last year's. Go ahead.
And so kind of a little bit what Lynn was saying. So if the tractor were to break down, We could always do a line item amendment and go back and take money from somewhere else
Very
and
specific
move it over and to be able to fix the tractor.
Or we'd have to sit there till next
I
year.
just wanted that, folks that might be watching, that didn't think we'd just have a blocking tractor.
And I know that city has agreed to do a lot of the maintenance on that, oil changes and just the routine stuff, but if it was something pretty major, then we would either pay for it or so. Go ahead, Liz.
So I guess, is there any discussion on whether you want to, not take out as much in each one of these line items, leave some money in there, not fund the $100,000? I think we need to discuss that so that we can move on with that amount and figure out what we're gonna do.
Okay. I'm just looking at it. I think on page 1, I think all those zeroing out engineering consulting, leaving 500 in audit, travel, advertising. I'm really
Are you looking at the resolution? Page one?
no, I'm still looking at the.
Yeah, that's the resolution.
Oh.
That's the resolution.
Okay.
I just want to make sure
Yes.
where we are.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So those top items there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you go through 6, 7, and then pull $10,000 as opposed to 25,000 out of the master plan budget, that would give you a total of 55,000. Then it would leave open the city park upgrades and the incentives and not pull any money out of those 2 items. I think that would be a fantastic start to begin with, to fund 55,000 as opposed to 100,000. And only leaving 49,000 left in the incentives budget is extremely low. You've already spent 70.
And I'm only gonna say this because
You've already spent.
so we've had a lot of discussion with city council, which you may or may not, they pretty much have just told us that they haven't supported much of the incentives. So we finished out the applications that we had on file, and we have not been advertising for more. So that was
Well,
why
I think that's the past and this is the future. And I think what we need to do is leave that money in there so that we have something to work with and not pull it out to hand out to this crisis right now.
So the incentives are that is the handout money, that is grant money. However we choose to give it, it is the grant money.
That's not sales tax revenue?
Our whole budget is, our entire budget is sales
Budget
tax
is
revenue.
Well, then say that again.
So the incentive account is where all of our grants come out of.
Right, and I'm saying let's not deplete it.
That is what we're doing. I mean, that, we're giving out grants.
You might define grants.
Um,
I think that's where.
This
talking about the
is
sun.
not necessarily a grant. This is an economic stimulus package,
right, but it all,
right? This money is not going to go into these businesses as an incentive to increase sales. That's not what this is for. That's not where I see it going. And I think it would be
so, okay, so
an important move.
I'm really struggling with trying to figure out where I'm missing you here. So I get what you're saying. So give me an example of what an incentive is to you that we would leave the money in there for, that we wouldn't give out. I mean, because we could put money back in it if we didn't. So, okay. So give me an
Are you saying
example.
for like the regular stuff, like the
Yes,
normal
yes, I am.
everyday
I am.
grants and incentives? She's talking about like the sign grants
Operating
and the
business,
regular stuff.
operating. Exactly. I'm talking about normal operations and, funding, matching programs, that sort of thing for the businesses. This money is not going to save businesses. It's
Yeah,
just
we're
not.
going to disagree with you on that. We agree.
So I think if we started with 55,000 as opposed to 100, and left the budget in the city park upgrades and incentives alone, then we continue to have some money to use in the future. And also, the replenishment factor comes into play. We don't know what that's gonna be. This is a new day. And so we may be receiving $23,000 a month today, but we may not see the 13,000 next month or the following months. And I think that the cash reserves that you have should be kept intact.
I totally hear what you say, because I'm a big time conservative and I don't want to spend all of our money, and I totally hear what she said. I will say this as a caveat, to the emergency situation, and I look at how many businesses we have in the city. When I looked at the list, and of course we're not going to give grants to all of them by any means, but when I looked at the list, there was something like 173. Now I'm
I
off.
think we whittled it down. We took out the big box stores. We took out some that, some that hadn't been closed, and I think we're closer to 100.
So when we get to the end of the
We
day,
took out the churches and the counties and the,
so even if you say 100 people, and I don't think we'll spend the whole 100,000, when it comes to the end of the day, when all of us get together and we pick through these applications and we decide who we would want to give the money to, and I'm all for saying, hey, 100,000 is our end goal or end budget, not our goal, but is our ending budget. That doesn't mean we spend the whole budget, because my budget could be $20 for the day, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna spend the $20. So we could do the 100,000. Don't spend the whole 100,000, but that allows us to have that money to give as we need to those businesses that do need it for their mortgage payment or for their utility payment. But we still have that, possibility of going, this company, this business doesn't need it, this business doesn't need it, like big box stores or whatever. If we whittle it down to $55,000, that allows us to give to half the businesses, and I think then that cuts us down from some stores that do need it, may not leave enough, and we can still do the line item transfers. It doesn't hurt us, just like me asking the questions about the master plan. If the city's not using the $25,000 and they haven't for the last 5 years, it doesn't hurt us to take the $25,000 out of there. The incentives, I say we use the $25,000 if that's what it's meant for, is to use it. And somebody needing a sign, if you want to start a business and you want to put a sign up, you can pay for your own dadgum sign, because you got $1,000, this year for us to help you out. So, that's where I'm at on it.
Okay, I think you're very
Yeah, you have. No, I just, real quick, do we all get this list? Did you pass this come in the packet for the newbies?
You know what? I don't know if it
Can you make a copy of that?
the round
It's
one,
that
round
list
two.
of businesses that everybody
Well, it was
signs
kind
up.
of, it was, I'm sorry, my apologies.
Okay, I just wanted to have to be in front of everybody so they
I
can
have,
have it.
I have some extras.
Okay. So we can see what we're looking at.
Is this all,
I think they have enough.
is this all one?
Yeah, it's all.
Okay.
Do you have enough? Do you want me to make it?
This is, there's. Yeah, we're good. I think we have what we need.
Did you get one?
It's on our-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, we got it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Megan.
So there was, there were a few, this was really quickly gone over. It was just to give us a quick idea of sort of a close number to how many were, small businesses that we felt kind of were struggling, were probably struggling. I know there was one that was, Can't Be Pretty, I think was the one that had closed down and we missed on that list. It's not an
And we
all-encompassing
may have
list.
missed some.
And there's some that weren't on the
Yeah.
list that when Rebecca had given us this is Jimmy Allen's list for his certificate of occupancy. And it's the one I mentioned when we were in the meeting, that I said, I know they had a list of businesses because they were working on that. And Rebecca sent it to Art. And so that's why we had it over the weekend and then sent it out to the to the last board, and then they kind of quickly reviewed, and that's how we came up with the list. By no means is it final, or
Okay.
approved, or it was just a quick.
So I do want to say something that one of the businesses did fill out an application, but I do not see it on this list, so you may already know that they will be, that they're opening, they're not opening, they're gonna be closing their business here, and they're moving to a storefront in Burton. But they told me that they did file an application, and they're not on the list, so.
We knew they were leaving, so
Okay.
we took them off.
So
We
you
took them off
didn't
the list.
include- Okay,
But again, it was not my decision to take them off the list. I would have put them back on had she applied, and we thought she was gonna be here, and she met the criteria. This is not a final list. This was just something that all we were trying to do is try to figure out a number of like a real
A baseline.
baseline number of what it would be
it
close
would
to.
have been disappointing though if she got the $1,000 and then moved the
I'm not
next
saying
month.
it's not.
Okay,
I'm not saying
okay.
it's not.
I think Andrew, did you have something
Yeah,
to say?
I'm not saying it's not. Yeah, but it was definitely, that kind of goes back to the people who are gonna apply for stuff,
Right.
even though they're not
So
gonna be
I-
here. Go ahead.
I think, I think with this application process, in that, not small, the really small businesses, perhaps their rent may be $450 a month, as opposed to $1,450 a month. They can apply accordingly, and I'm sure their income is pretty much in line with their rents. The more you make, the higher your rent. So some people will ask for less money, and some people will ask for more money. And so I think if it goes to gauge that way and look at the other income that those businesses have, I think if we could read out a lot of applicants and really.
So again, the way the resolution read was we were gonna start with 100,000 seed money. Weren't intending to spend it all unless we felt a need to spend it all. And it was up to $1,000 per business. That's the way the resolution read. That was the 2 blanks that we were given by the mayor. Those were the 2 numbers I was told to give her. And so it was up to $1,000 per business, up to a total $100,000.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm saying some businesses may not have needed $1,000. They may have needed $450. And that might have.
I'm pretty sure we shouldn't use past tense. I'm sure they currently need it. They currently need the business.
I'm not sure that I know everything about everybody's business.
I don't.
So.
Which is exactly why we did it
Which
up
is
to,
why.
pending
I
application, pending pending sales tax proof that you're actually a business that's supposed to collect sales tax and you actually pay it to the comptroller. We
Right.
want actual
In the city of
reports.
Bandera.
Yeah, to legitimize the fact that, that they're doing what they're supposed to do. So that was all part of it. But again, nothing was approved. This was just something we talked about. Andrew, did you have your hand up?
Well, I just wanted to touch on the incentives that you brought up, that line item. That money, right now, we didn't have any applications in the pipeline. And, that money is to fund business expansion, growth, whatever. Well, I don't really think anybody's going to be doing that for 6 months. They're going to be recovering from what's going on. So I believe that money should be included in there. And like Darcy said, when we came up with that $100,000, we took into consideration the funds aren't going to be, we're not going to be receiving as much sales tax that we have been.
Right.
And so, right, we did
We
talk
did,
about
absolutely,
that.
yeah,
And so
absolutely.
we didn't max I don't feel like we were maxing ourselves out. And that's just for this budget.
And we were very conservative this budget year, even in our budget process. We didn't, as you can see, we didn't budget nearly as much incentives as we did before. We felt like we had a lot of major projects that we really wanted to back, such as the museum and help some of our really cool historic buildings that have been neglected for so many years. We wanted to partner with the people that wanted to step up and spend the money and do it right. And so, we did that to incentivize them to make them accessible and, do certain criteria and actually have actually help preserve our history. So those were pretty big projects. And we're still kind, when we came into budget process, we looked at all of that and the things that we have committed in the future, out. Another big one was when Tractor Supply came in. We didn't give any money to Tractor Supply like people say we did. The city needed to supply utilities over across the river, which they were not equipped to do. And it was going to cost, I think the quote was just under $500,000 to get the city engineer and to come up with a plan and to hire somebody to do it. And we had a working relationship with the developers over there when they were looking for property. And so they came to us and said, hey, we don't want the city's lack of funds and lack of ability to get this done. If we do it for the specs, for the city engineer, if you tell us what you want us to do, I'll go to my contractor and I will ask him how much it is. And he said it's $205,000. So our city engineer, we did all of the inspections, we did all per everything, and it saved the city almost $300,000. So that's the reason we partnered and did that and paid, and they were paying it out $41,000 over a year. But that was a city project that pulled in Tractor Supply, which increases the economic development and the sales tax and all of that stuff. But it also didn't bring the city to its knees trying to come up with, they buy the property and they're in the city's limits. We have to supply utilities to them. So, it was a partnership all around, and it's a big misnomer out there in the city of what we did. And we didn't just give money to Tractor Supply. Like, they're a big box store, they don't need to. What we did was we partnered with the city to get done what needed to be done so that it didn't impact the city's budget. And that's what actually happened. So we're still paying that $41,000. We've given 2 payments. Oh, and that's the other thing. And there's an Excel spreadsheet that that's tiny, tiny little letters. And all of this, I know, right? All of this is ultimately going into QuickBooks. So the top one is a little easier to read because it doesn't have download fish. You should have your packet like this. There's two of them that kind of look like Excel. So the top one gives you more current information, like what's outstanding this year that we haven't paid yet, which is $106,289. Those are the things that if these pending receipts come in, that's the money that needs to go out. The notes on the outside that tells you what just kind of the high level, what's happened and what was approved and what's been funded. And then the bottom one, you'll see where it breaks out. We have $12,000 going to $12,000 increments going to Best Western, provided that they meet certain criteria each year, all the way out to for 10 years, for $120,000, 10 years and $12,000 a year. So those are going to go into QuickBooks so that we have. So it's not going to be so hard for us like we did this year for budgeting, because none of that future was out there.
Right,
we had to figure it out. Yeah. So we've talked about that, and I told Megan that I would go through and make sure exactly what all we had paid, what we needed to pay, and so based on this, I think we can go ahead and put the payments in there. But that gives you an idea. If you look at the top one, so the $106,289 is just this year's obligations. Should these receipts come in and they be paid?
So we did take that into consideration
We
as
did.
well when we came up with
So you've
that number.
you've covered yourself there.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. And I thought we were conservative with the $100,000.
I think so
And
too.
we just wanted some seed funding, and then we could, if none, like you said, Lee, we don't know how long this is happening, and if we recover and we don't use it all, it's like it is what it is, and so we just. So anyway, that's kind of the whole thing. Go ahead, Lou.
I'm going to agree with Andrea on the 25,000 incentive. I think that should be included because that is spent for incentives. That's what I know this is a stimulus, but sometimes they're using their incentive program for a reimbursement as well, and I would like to see this stimulus package or stimulus program be leaning towards a reimbursement, and that's what you normally use your incentive money besides the facades and
There's some things
and
we
those
say
kinds of
already,
things.
they're not many.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what they normally use that money for, and it's still going to leave. What did you say? 49,000. 49,000 in that incentive fund.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead. Lee.
So, just doing the math, if you've got $259,000 in cash, you spend $100,000 on the COVID crisis, you spend $106,000 on what you've already been obligated, that leaves you with $52,000 in cash. We don't know what sales tax revenue is going to do. I think that's dangerously low cash level personally, but because of the future and because of we don't know what's going to happen with unemployment rates, which is going to really dramatically impact all businesses in town. It could go as high as 30%, which will knock people out of
Yes.
it will absolutely just cause a lot of problems. And that is a really important issue that needs to be addressed for future. And because I think we need to look to the future.
So are you saying that you would like to maybe keep some money in that incentive so that if like 4 months from now or 5 months from now, somebody needs to come and use that money for unemployment?
Yes, I am.
Can we use that for that? Tony? Can
When you gave it the floor, I was gonna ask her how
Oh.
she felt like we as an economic development was, how that was something.
I think
that
it
we
would.
could-
I think it would be like a phase 2 of this COVID crisis. So this would be phase 1, and that would be phase 2. So
help
it
with
could fall under the same umbrella.
Okay, well, I mean, we have to be really careful what we call it.
Right.
We wouldn't be able to get involved in the unemployment piece of it.
I'm not sure that
It's
that's
an
under
operating-
our
it's
umbrella.
an
Well, we
operating
can do it
expense.
for job retention, but to prevent unemployment. But if they have employees that have already, they already left the
No,
business.
that's not, it has nothing to do with unemployment filings.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It has to do with the tax rate issued by the state for businesses. And it could go up to 30%. 30% of gross wages paid, which will really hurt everybody.
Okay, so
For people who have, it's not being applied to unemployment taxes or filing. It's the businesses and
believe me, I know you're the accounting guru in this crowd, so I'm listening to you, trying to understand and trying to follow. So if I'm questioning, it's only to learn, it's not
Okay.
to question.
no,
you.
I understand.
Okay.
And that's what people need to understand. Let's say, for instance, Johnny Boyle is at a 0.03% on $1,000 wages, which means his unemployment tax paid to the state is somewhere around $30 or whatever.
Okay.
If it jumps to 30%,
I'm following
you following me?
I think so.
That tax rate will really, really hit us hard. All businesses in Bandera that have
Because the
employees.
obligation as an employer, the percentage of your obligation that you pay to the unemployment, is-
Correct.
which becomes part of your overhead.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, I'm following you.
That's correct.
Yeah, the unemployment was, I was trying to,
Yeah.
I got it now. The
Yeah.
insurance, the unemployment insurance that you pay
Yes.
for your.
And that is going to really hit everyone really hard. So I'm just trying to look to the future and see, let's hope that doesn't happen, because that will cause just a tremendous ripple down for businesses. So I guess I'm just trying to.
And it would impact the smaller businesses more than the
Oh,
larger.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, not necessarily.
Well, 30% of $1 to a small business, however many,
It's a lot of money.
that's huge.
But then if you've got employees,
So that's
I
what I'm
think it's
saying.
still more relevant.
But I'm saying for small business, you don't have,
1 to 4 employees. I mean, if they
Yeah.
So
file
it's Johnny,
unemployment,
if
it's huge.
if you're, let's say you spend $100,000 a month to employees, your taxes is $30,000 a month. That's a lot of money. So that can happen because there's been so much unemployment violence. They're going to have to raise the rate.
which full circle.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
Which
true.
is, why the minimum wage is such a controversy from people that don't understand the big picture. Because we're in person.
I understand.
I will say that that businesses are incentivized from the point of view to not let their employees go, from the point of view of borrowing money from the state or getting grants from the state. Is what I was reading yesterday, and one of the things that we were sharing, the little class that you and I took, the hour class. So if they retain 75% of their employees or more, then you're still eligible for the grants from the state.
Forgiven.
Right, it can be forgiven. So, I mean, that's a big incentive right there.
And originally, when we came up with this, I was thinking of it more of a loan basis, like the phase 2, having it more of a loan criteria, and then if they met what we decided, whatever it was, then we did forgive it. But if we would deem it a grant, and then they wouldn't have to pay it back. We would defer it. It would be a low interest loan, and come to that point, then they wouldn't owe us anything if they did what they said they were going to do after a year. Or, but some of it's within their control and some of it's not. So that's the struggle at that point. The other piece to that is, although I'm not an accounting person, I'm definitely a math person. So my sides have to balance. So when you say maintain 75% of your people, so you've got 3 full-time people, and all of a sudden now you have 6 part-time people, and they're not, they're part-time doing 20 hours a week and not 32, so you start getting into really some vague and gray areas when you start talking about percentages of people retaining staff and that kind of stuff. So I'm not saying we're not for it. I'm just saying keep that in your mind, that we should be specific about what does that mean. If you had 4 employees full-time, you have 160 hours a week, then you have to maintain that average for 52 weeks out of the year, or maybe within a percentage of that average. People leave, you can't penalize them for an employee that left. But something that shows, their intent was pure and they did what they could do to meet the criteria.
Can I excuse for just a second? I can just go back here. No, can I be excused?
Oh,
for
I
just
thought
a
you
second?
said speak to me.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. Tony. I'm sorry, Tony. I'm sorry.
I've been watching my P's and Q's. Anyway, so I just, when you talk about, and we've gotten into that before. I mean, we have a lot of lessons learned. We tried some different things with EDC that we felt were really good things, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, that didn't work out. Life happens, and it's not always the intention of the people that we gave it to. I mean, it is what it is. And so you just have to decide what are your battles. If you learn, you move on, you change your motive. And we decided we weren't going to do any more battles. I mean, that was, and the council wanted it out of our bylaws. Or I shouldn't say that. I just explained to Lynn, don't say that, because they didn't make a decision, but many of them were pushing us to not do one. So, and that was part of the discussion.
But that is one thing that we can do for the city, right? If they came to us and needed something, that is one thing that we can do, is do a small interest loan, so it's not good to take that out of our bylaws, because it's not there anymore.
And certainly the SBA didn't help us out at all.
And I'm a proponent of, if the state allows us to do it, it should be in our bylaws.
Then we have to do it.
So then if there's a situation, then it is a 7-member board, and it is their discretion to weigh it all out and decide if it's best and not within the criteria, and that's how it's supposed to work. So, Andrew, are you okay?
Well, about the unemployment, I think there's talk about exempting that increase.
I hope they're
So I
talking
think we need to look,
about it.
well, I think we need to look into that.
Yes.
Because I think that would also.
I had heard
I
that.
heard that too. The doctor I work for, he said, as long as you did not let your employees go, and you paid your employees 75% of them, you will not be penalized. Well, no, wait. Let me back up. My friend who owns 3 bars in Houston. She said, my accountant told me, let him go get unemployment. She's like, well, I don't want to do that because I don't want that. And he's like, it's not going to be it's not going to go against you. It's not going to raise
It's
your.
part of the things that they're not.
But I see where she's coming from because who really knows? They've got to come up with
Well,
something to.
And
Well, the replenishment ratio, and that's, or the baseline tax rate is 2.7% for the first year for every business. They're gonna have to raise that because there's so many claims right now. And that's what I'm talking about, is that base rate. It's not the punishment rate, because they had that too, but it's that base rate that they're gonna have to.
this goes back to kind of a discussion we had last meeting, was that, your mortgage companies are saying, your car notes, they're saying, don't worry about your payment. Don't worry about your payment this month or next month, I'll give you a 4-month deal, but then all of a sudden it's like a balloon payment at the end of that. I mean, it may not include interest, but you've got to come up with it. And so they may be deferring it and not necessarily getting rid of it, because ultimately, like you said, it's a replenishment rate. If they've used that account down, they've got to figure out how to get back up. And if nobody's employed, there's nobody replenishing it. So I mean, that's common sense, yeah.
And I think that's kind of what the city's doing too. They've kind of given everybody a break for a couple of months, and then it's going to be redo. Although I think they're going to be making payment plans, and from what I've heard, that most people have been paying their utility bills, so they're pretty good standing. But I've heard the electric company also is deferring. And there's a lot of real estate agents in town that have done that are property managers, and that their renters are being allowed to. Of course, it would be a good idea for you to go ahead and pay as much as you can, certainly. So there are people trying to work with people.
Andrea?
Well, there's a lot of unknowns. We don't know how long
There
this
is.
is gonna go on. We don't know if we're gonna have a second wave. And I mean, it just seems like everybody's just, we're just figuring it out as we go,
And that's why, and that really is why we backed it down to 100,000. Let's get some criteria, let's buy some time. We really truly believe that the EDC money was coming in addition to the SBA loans, because not everybody qualified for those. And so that was all of our conversation. We didn't get into details on how it was actually going to be doled out. Any other discussion? Anybody? We have motions that were presented and given by the board last, which are standing, unless somebody makes a motion to override and it passes. Entertain motions at this point if anybody wants to do so. Darcy?
I'll make a motion that we continue with the previous motions.
All of them as they stand?
Can I get a copy of those?
Those were the resolutions that you got in your packet. And there were also the email that you should have gotten an actual copy from an email that is your city council stuff.
I think it's Exhibit A and the back of the packet, the exhibits.
So what was the exact motion, if you don't mind me asking, please? I'd like to hear the exact motion.
First meeting.
No, because you're
it's not
saying,
you.
you're
I'm
saying all of the
looking for-
previous motions. I did have a copy
Okay,
of all of
my
Art's
motion,
motions, but I don't have them with me now.
my motion is
Okay.
that we, the new council,
The new board.
the new board, sorry, continue with the resolutions on numbered. Exhibit A, a maximum of $100 or $1,000 grant offered to businesses within the city limits of Bandera, Texas. Funding priorities to be given to those businesses that were deemed non-essential and forced to close, thereafter to be funded on a first come, first served basis. The requirements must be current on all sales tax and property tax related to business, must provide documentation for 1 year prior city tax statements where applicable. That would be basically a first option, or a option, not a first option, sorry, city council. And then we have a B.
I want to hear that motion again, please.
Well,
What
We
was
have
the
two
motion?
exhibit A's.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
for
so we need to
clarification,
come. we need
So-
to-
So for discussion purposes, we actually had a motion to do the budget adjustment for the $100,000 and the detailed discussion that we had earlier on where those were coming from. So that stands unless somebody changes it.
So
And the
motion to,
second
what
one-
was that? Tony, motion to what?
The $100,000 and then all of the detailed budgeting, the budgets, the different accounts that we moved into that. We went. And then we gave two options. The up to $1,000 per business. And then we gave another option because of some feedback that was discussed in council, although we said, well, we went with the 2,500, up to 2,500, and we said that that number should be created or determined based on the mortgage or the sales tax that they generated. Not as a sales tax rebate, but it was 2 times their mortgage, 2 times their rent, or up to $2,500 of sales tax that they had generated.
Whichever is greater, up to 25.
Up to 25%. So the budget amendment is one.
So
And
can we
then-
vote on the budget?
But it
amendment?
sounded like
Let's do
you
that.
were looking at, you were wanting to do the 100,000 at the $1,000 maximum and give it.
I was grouping it all
You were
together.
grouping
I
it
think
all
we
together
should
with the
do that.
same,
It
with
should-
the
needs
same
to be
option.
separate.
Okay.
And I said,
Right.
Okay, so we made a motion to amend the budget. Is that for $100,000? Is that
She
what
made a
we're-
motion to maintain the motions that were done in the last EDC meeting, which is 3 different things.
Oh.
It is the 100,000, creating the $100,000 account, budget line item for the stimulus.
Right.
And it itemizes out exactly what accounts that comes from. That's piece A.
Mhm.
And then piece B was an option. It's a one or, the second piece of it is an option 1 or 2.
either or.
It's an either or, so that the council can decide if they want it to be up to $1,000 per business, or if they want it to be up to $2,500 per business. And that would be something but each of them was still based on $100,000.
And basically it comes down, do you want to help 40 businesses or do you want to help 100 businesses?
I thought we were going to, was there a second motion to that?
Yes.
I did.
I thought we were gonna take these on a case-by-case basis, not first come, first served till the money's out. I thought we were gonna do that. Is
You
that,
know-
that's what I thought we were
So
gonna
that comes
do.
into the application process,
Okay,
which
is
we haven't gotten into.
Okay.
All we're doing is establishing a $100,000 budget,
mhm,
up to $1,000 per business. So we would have an option of, if we had 100 businesses that took $1,000, and then the
according to
application.
the application. So you're saying according to,
So we haven't even talked about the application.
okay, so I don't,
You're
I'm not
establishing
gonna
the
agree
amount
with.
of money first.
They still have to apply,
They
and we
still have
still
to
have to
apply.
accept it.
And they have to meet
Criteria.
eligibility and
Absolutely.
criteria.
That's our next
Basically, it's not
discussion.
gonna be $1,000 check written
Just because you
for
apply.
a nilly-willy.
No, like
Okay.
if Lee said, if they bring in a receipt for their rent
Mhm.
and it was $450, well, then we're gonna give them $450. You don't have to give them the whole
Okay.
1,000. That's what, I mean,
Yeah,
isn't
if I-
that what you were?
As long as we've gotten away from that
Yeah,
first thing that
so
was gonna
We're
be.
not just giving.
So what I would like
Okay.
to see done, is, we really are struggling with getting some feedback from council. Whether they agree with everything we've done, I don't expect anybody to agree with everything we've done, but we don't know what they do, as a whole, we don't know what council agrees with and what they don't agree with. So with this, establishing $100,000 budget, up to $1,000 per business, if we can at least figure out that that's what we're going for, and then in next week's meeting on the 30th, if they say yes, that that is true, then we look at the applications and say, and come up with our criteria.
I think before you're going to be able to bring that to council, they will want to see the criteria that is being
I
met.
would like
The
to,
eligibility, what businesses are going to be eligible. They're going to want to see the packet. And
so
then they'll feel confident in making the decision.
why isn't this a joint effort? Why can't they give us their feedback based on the $100,000 budget and $1,000 per business? Why can't they say, you know, we'd really like the criteria to be based on this, take a vote, give us a
I
census.
think it would be better if we brought something to them at this point. And this is a good idea right here. The only thing that they're going to require is to see who's eligible, what that application is going to entail, a little bit more teeth to that stimulus package. That's what they're going to want to look at. And moving forward from that, Tony, no more going backwards, that the council has never given us guidance. We've
And
tried,
who's going
but I'm
backwards?
not gonna.
All I said was I would
Okay.
like to
Okay.
get some input
Yeah.
to make this a little more efficient. I'm not going
Okay.
backwards.
Okay,
I
so
would
I
ask
think
that
it's gonna
anyway.
be efficient to do it this way, so as long as you attach the paperwork that needs to be
So
attached.
so just because these motions are being made, doesn't mean we can't make more. So all we're trying to start is with a baseline so we can figure out how to
Okay.
move forward.
All right, sounds good.
I would like to, and like you said, we can make more motions, but I'd like to start with this. And then if we decide to go ahead and come up with our application from here, fantastic, if everybody's up for it. I would like, as a citizen, to see council say yes to this $100,000. And if they want to see more from us and say, hey, we want to see the application before they're going to give us the okay to actually spend the $100,000, that's fine. But at least let's see some progress. There's something with us coming up with these. But if we want to do the application tonight and we know what we want on the application, I have all my questions already written out. So if we want to do it and it just takes typing up, let's do it.
Yeah,
And get it to council.
I agree.
And that's what I would agree with. I would agree if we could present this motion for the $100,000 for up to $1,000, and then we attach the application and what we're going to be asking for as criteria and their eligibility, then I think that's going to be satisfactory to the city council. So can we move forward with that?
Sounds good to me.
So, Darcy, did you make the motion to do the $100,000 at 1,000?
I made all
That
three
motion.
in one bundle.
Okay, so
So there's an option. So there's-
So council can decide what they want, either the 1,000.
I think all we need to do is send something to council.
So-
If you want to say the $100,000 and the cap is 1,000, then we
There's a
do that.
motion and a second for exactly what we're stating. If it does not pass,
Okay.
then we will entertain more discussion and we can have another motion. So, any other discussion on exactly what's on the table? Okay, call for a vote. Those in favor? In favor, those opposed? Two opposed.
I don't think they should have all been grouped together that way. Okay.
Okay, so let's move on for further discussion. We're y'all up for continuing with the application criteria? So Darcy, go ahead.
Okay, can I say something, please? Are we gonna be using this as a reimbursement for utilities, rent and mortgage?
That's what
That's
we're
what we're
about to
talking right now. We
discuss.
haven't talked about that. Criteria.
You've already got stuff, why don't
I
you?
do, I have quite a few questions if y'all want to hear them.
You have the floor.
Okay. Have you applied for any state funding since the COVID-19 emergency declaration by Texas Governor on March 13, 2020? If so, from where, and is it grant Is it a grant or loan or a loan that may be forgiven? That's one question. Second one is exactly the same except for it's federal funding. So it's, have you applied for any federal funding since COVID-19 emergency declaration by the Texas governor on March 13, 2020? If so, from where? Is it a grant or a loan that may be forgiven? Have you applied for any loans or grants other than from the government since the COVID-19 emergency declaration by the Texas governor on March 13, 2020? If so, from where? And is it a grant, a loan, or a loan that may be forgiven? If the answer to any of the above questions are yes, how much funding have you already received and how much more could you possibly have coming at this time? If you have not applied for any other grants or loans, why not? How long have you been in business in the city of Bandera? Do you have plans to move your business outside the city of Bandera in the next 24 months? Has your business been forced to close due to federal, state, or local orders? If so, what date did you close? Has your business been able to stay open during the COVID-19 crisis? If so, have you lost profit since March 13, 2020? If yes, approximately what percentage profit are you down from this time last year? Are you or a co-owner a member of the Bandera City Council, the mayor, or a member of the Bandera EDC? And do you have another source of income to support you or your family?
So any of the list, I'm gonna go around the room. Does anybody have anything that they want to take off of that they don't think should be there? Rhonda?
Take off? No. I've
Andrea?
got stuff to add.
Lynn? Lee? I'm just trying to kind of keep a structure. Lee, you have something to say? Go ahead.
What was your question?
If you had anything that you wanted to take off of what
Oh,
she had to say.
no, I wouldn't take it.
Okay. So now I'm gonna go around the room, think about what you might want to add to it, okay?
So this is gonna be for eligibility or on the?
Just what you're having,
application?
well, what's on the application, I mean, it has to be on the application in order to determine eligibility later. So if she didn't list something that you have in your mind that you think you should know
Yes,
before determining eligibility, if she didn't put that on the application for you to know that when you're looking at the application,
yes.
this would be the time to say that. So, okay, I'll go the other way. Go ahead.
Yes, I think we should add, can you provide proof of payment for your rent and utilities? Have they been paid or have they been abated? Because if they've been abated, then I would like to see proof that it was paid and that you're current. Will you be able to stay in business for the next 6 months? I think that's a really important question. Have you received EDC money within the past 2 years? And are you current on Texas sales tax reports, collections, and reporting, 941 employer's tax, and federal income taxes?
I'm sorry, what was the last one? Sales tax.
Sales
employer's
tax, employer's tax, and federal income taxes. And property tax. And property tax.
Yeah, that's usually when we look at.
And I think
And
by,
just sales tax, when you say sales tax, you include food and beverage with that, for that,
yes.
because that doesn't fund our budget, but it is, so I just want to make,
I think
I just want to make sure
I
that.
think in all aspects of tax reporting, everyone needs to be correct.
I agree, I just wanted to, because that's kind of come up in our conversations before.
While we're on that, the caveat that are being paid to the city of Bandera.
Yeah, because if your business is, so, and let me just
Yes.
explain why we had that. We had people apply for EDC loans, and when we went to fund them to make sure that they were paid up on their taxes, it was a business that was set up in the county, and then they moved to the city, and they never changed that on the comptroller. So they weren't collecting and paying city tax. So, and we fought tooth and nail with them to change it, even though it was like a 30-second thing. They were not happy because they were coming back for reimbursement. And so we never assumed that somebody would say, yes, I pay sales tax in the city. And so just know that there was a lesson learned that came out here. And so we did receive some applications that weren't itemized. And so I had asked for an itemized. Most people send them in itemized that we've gotten so far. So,
And I think I would also add that they would need to provide proof. Right.
so the only thing I agree with all the intent behind that. The only thing that I would worry about is the, do you intend to be in business for another 6 months? Intention, isn't all. Yeah, so,
I think, Tony, that, it could be probably reworded
yeah.
in that, under the circumstances right now, would you have enough cash flow to stay in business? Basically, and that's a kind of a moral question.
It
in
gets
that-
them thinking.
in that, if I'm gonna receive this money, I need to be honest about this answer. Because if you know you don't have enough money to hang, then
Yeah, and your catch-22, if you've got a new business that just came in and they're all in, and then all of a sudden this hits out of nowhere.
that's right.
So, I mean, maybe a little seed money would help them get through, and then they would be fine on the other side, but you don't always know that. So,
No, and businesses need to have a certain amount of working capital in the bank. And I guess that's my concern about, taking all this cash out of EDC's money and not having some on reserve. So I think that's a really important question to ask.
I agree. Leonard, Andrea. Adding to the list, adding to the application.
Okay, I think this has already been said, but I'm just gonna say must be current on all sales tax and property tax related to the
We
business.
just said,
Must provide documentation for 1 year prior, city sales tax statements, documentation to verify the rent, documentation to verify mortgage, or applicable
Lee just said all.
documentation for the utilities. I'd like to add physical and publicly accessible location within the city of Bandera, city limits, no home-based businesses. I want them to have a storefront.
Okay, brick and mortar store.
I want them to have a storefront.
You mean I can't apply for my Freshie business?
I feel like if I can go on, that they need to be in good standing with the city regarding licensings and permits.
That's sort of that's
That's
kind
a
of the one of the
standard.
ones we always have on our, before we pay.
I'd
our
like
bills,
to
make
go
sure.
ahead and include that in the eligibility. Let's see. Engage in activities that are all legal under city and state law. I'd like to add that for Darcy. I think we've already said must be registered with Texas Comptroller's Office as a sales tax revenue generating business for the city of Bandera. We've already kind of said that.
Lynn, I have a question about that.
Uh,
What about businesses that don't collect sales tax?
What business would not collect? I don't have any idea.
Hair
Hair salons,
Dentist,
Real estate,
manicures.
dentist,
accountants,
service oriented.
Accountants.
anybody who's a service.
Yes. So
Hmm.
I don't think it would be fair to discriminate against those businesses
I agree
because
with that.
they are a real part of.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think it's a question we can ask on here, but when we see what type of business they are.
Maybe so.
they
When we
doesn't-
see, if we
So
see
when-
that they're a salon, then we don't have to. They
Well,
don't
when
have
we
to
talked
provide
about this
that.
before, it
That's a
was
good
more of
idea.
a sort criteria. Because people with the sales tax that were paid, they went to the top. And
That's
when
what
we
we
had
put
any
the
more
points.
money, then it was like, so it was a sorting thing, and we were using that, but we didn't exclude them if they didn't generate it. In
So
our
we would
original
just-
discussion, which I realize we're having a new discussion, I'm just saying that sort of our mindset. from before. Okay, so based on what Lee's added and Lynn, any takeoffs, anybody, okay, everybody okay with that? Okay.
I'm not really okay. I think some of the home-based businesses, maybe your landscapers, some of those people, I think they're going to be hurting just as bad as any of the rest.
But they don't have any overhead. They don't have a storefront or a retail shop.
Well, they might have equipment payments
a
they're
lot of
making. You don't know what some of these people have. We're
And I guess we
assuming.
could do that on a
And-
point system.
So,
And I just don't want to assume.
so if we put the question on there of, do you have a physical location of your business, a brick and mortar? And then if they said no, then, again, it's a sorting criteria.
Right.
I think it's a great thing to put on there. It's just,
Other thing that I'd like to add is for the people that are falling in the cracks. Going back to Darcy's first questions, maybe, you know, why did you not qualify? All of that maybe.
Yeah, if you have not applied for any other loans or grants, why not? I mean, we can definitely.
Why were you rejected or not?
Mhm.
The word, that's not rejected. What's the word that I'm trying to think? Why were you?
Qualified.
Why were you?
And it may be that,
Disqualified.
Why
you
were
know,
you
the funds ran out
disqualified, or-
and they're sitting, you know, my application's sitting on a desk somewhere, like Lynn, I think you mentioned that.
That's
But
pretty
you know,
much the answer.
That's what's.
Right, and that's what we're
exactly.
finding. So, you know, anybody who's kind of fallen in the cracks, I want to make sure that we don't facilitate it anymore.
That's good, right? Andrea, did you have
No, I didn't.
anything to add?
And it
Shows
should
our
encourage
application
everyone
has
to
teeth
apply.
and it's.
That's
what
questions,
council
if there's a
said.
question, I mean,
I think that was really our intention earlier, was to try to make the questions to the point where we got information to legitimize the business. We got the information we wanted for the ones up top. And then if we had money left over, we would go back and we would ask more questions to try to kind of get a little more level playing ground and stuff on the ones if we had more money left over. The thing is that I don't want somebody not to apply when they really deserve it. Because, and I don't want to discourage anyone by asking a question that they may or may not want to answer or not comfortable answering. You know, you just don't know what's going to turn people off. And so
And some people are proud, and this is hard for them
well, we're
to
never
do.
going to get their application.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
let's move on,
Andrea,
moving
I just
forward.
think we need to make sure that we word the application towards more gathering information and not disqualifying someone.
I agree with you.
And so they don't feel obligated to answer a question either way or dishonestly or whatever, because it's not gonna disqualify you if you don't pay sales tax. It's not gonna disqualify you if you don't have brick and mortar.
We can even
Location.
put that in there. I
Exactly.
think we should, whoever types it up, I don't know if it would.
I saw your hand going.
I got it.
She already has it baptized up anyway.
The case by case,
Right, and
you know,
then we
case
would
by case,
be
yes.
reviewing
That
that,
we would be reviewing.
but not discouraging people from applying because they
That's fine.
Every day.
That's not
Well,
Well, I think a lot of these questions will knock a lot of applicants off right away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they know that what their answer is gonna be, and it's not what we're gonna want to see.
And
So,
that's what we're gonna
I
want.
think it would
So I want to
be.
be real careful. We are in kind of a workshop, a laissez.
Oh.
So, you know, the cross talk, I mean, I'm okay with you talking and saying to whoever, but we just need to do one at a time. So go ahead. You want to finish what your thought is and then
Oh, I just think it's gonna weed out a lot of applications if we get this in depth with these questions.
and that was our intention, was
Yeah.
to get further down into the whole, so.
I know this is gonna cause some controversy, but I really do feel that people who serve on the city council, people who serve on the EDC, people who serve on planning and zoning, I really do feel that they should not be punished. They're here volunteering their services. And I know that,
No, you don't know what I'm gonna say.
So, yeah.
but let me finish. I just feel that these people have stepped up. This is something totally beyond anything anybody could ever imagine. And I just don't think that we should we should punish them
So
for
technically,
being
this is,
a good citizen.
technically, this is a discussion for the past. That's the only thing that the city council vote on as a no.
I know,
Absolutely not.
but I still have a problem with it.
Noted.
Okay.
Lynn, do you still have your hand up?
The only thing that I can say about that is when I asked the city attorney's opinion on that, he said that we already have things in place that would, like let's say, I'm gonna take Rhonda for example, and Tony, I kind of agreed with you when you said that at the meeting, because I viewed the tape, the very last EDC meeting, I viewed that. meeting a couple of times. And you did say, well, you know, this isn't really incentive, this is a stimulus for COVID-19.
Right, because,
There's-
and then you want me to quote the bylaws, it says that they don't qualify for incentives or loans.
Right.
And so, I mean, there is a new nomenclature here. Yeah.
And so also, from what my understanding is like Rhonda, her sister could file the application, but Rhonda could just not participate in the vote.
You'd be okay with that?
And yeah,
Well, she could be okay with that, but until that comes across council, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, they've
Can you
already
express
ruled,
that to
they've
council?
already ruled.
I can express that to council.
I mean, and you would have to talk to them to have a revote, but in my mind, and I'm sure in Rhonda's, her name is on the business. That is, and she is sitting on the CDC board, and based on what the council ruled, she
Right,
does not
right. I
qualify.
was just trying to think of, I didn't realize that both the names were on there. I thought it was just so it's a partnership.
It's a partnership.
Okay. All right, well then moving on.
I just had to get it out.
That's fine.
And
That's fine. And I was trying to think of a way
I'm
to,
okay with that.
I was
Like I
trying
said
to think of a
earlier,
way.
it's not going to determine.
I'm not gonna
my
need it.
sister.
I'm not gonna need it.
April asked me
It's
if
not
you
gonna
resign,
determine
if that would fix the problem.
Well, April doesn't get to
I
ask.
know, but I understood where she came from.
All right, Darcy.
Sorry. So in reviewing stuff that some other cities have done, because I've done that a lot, I'm sure some others in the room have too. But a couple of different cities, their EDCs have also gotten a lot of donations. I know probably most of our tiny city doesn't have a ton of money to accept donations. I don't know that exactly the EDC can take donations. I know the city can take donations.
I would have to look into that, but off the top of my head, I believe we can take donations from anybody.
How much does it hurt for us to put that up on our website that will accept donations, and 100% of those donations will be fed directly into businesses? And I would love,
Or to the stimulus meeting.
yeah,
As a part of this particular program.
and I would love, matter of fact, I'd like to make a motion that we do that we present that to council.
I don't think you have to even present
Pending
that to
approval
council,
from our
do you?
attorney.
Pending approval from our attorney that we're allowed to, I'd like to make a motion that we put it out there that we can accept donations from the public, and 100% of the donations that we accept from the public go directly into the businesses.
Second, I second that.
If it's $10, it's $10.
Any further discussion on that? Those in favor? All in favor? Didn't miss anybody, right? None opposed? None opposed. Very good. I don't believe we need a motion for the application. Since I can send you what I have, and then you can modify, add, copy and paste the questions that you have. And then, and then we can figure out where, did you get the, Lee and Lynn's? Y'all are gonna be lost together. And then we'll add those in, and we'll get, send it out to the board for a quick review before next week.
One thing that we didn't discuss is nonprofits. I know one person mentioned it, but we did not discuss whether
I think that was gonna be part of the eligibility, and that's where we have to get clear on who's gonna be eligible for that. What I read to you was that nonprofits were not gonna be eligible.
Yeah, but that was Hondo. But we didn't.
Do I need to
discuss
make a motion to all of this then?
Well,
The
I guess-
eligibility and the
I guess my
people
question,
that are not eligible?
before we go down it,
Okay.
let me just wait. So if we want to consider it as eligibility, and we want to stay in the same intention as what we've talked about here, is we put it on the application, are you a nonprofit? And, and then when we get the criteria, we sort them wherever we think they sort. Whether and that would be not excluding them, getting their application.
That's fair.
One thing that I don't think we noted was how many employees or how many payroll hours, what's your average payroll hour, that kind of thing. And nonprofits, because nonprofits do employ people. So they do
The
feed our
museums.
stimulus when you pay local people, many of them, especially people that are so nonprofit oriented, that money is probably more likely to stay in our community than the people that aren't nonprofit working here. Because they are very focused on supporting your own community. So from that aspect, if you're a nonprofit and you employ people, that could be a criteria we would want to consider.
How
Just
many,
because of
how
the
many
lines.
full-time, how many part-time? One question.
Member, full-time member. And I would consider part-time anything less than 32 hours, right? Just to clarify. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I thought that originally we weren't doing anything for the nonprofit because they do have other ways to get it. So are we
Yes.
changing it
They
now?
changed it
We're not,
last time.
so we're not really changing it.
last
We're
meeting.
changing the information that we're getting from people. We're allowing anybody to apply. Because we've sort of changed our mindset. If we're able to add the donation part to it, then our funding will increase. If we're able to get the EDC money trickling down, our funding will increase. So if we have a nonprofit that, we go through, I would like sort criteria. I would hate to leave anybody out of the application process. And, we can't promise anybody anything, but I'm just saying.
Right. Like the museum, their gift store. I mean,
They don't really sell much of that gift store. I talked to Maggie the other day.
well,
So
but they
that's not
still
really-
employ people.
I don't know if I'm going to agree with giving money to nonprofits. They can apply for grants all year round.
And I'm not saying they can't.
Yeah,
I'm
they
just
can
saying
apply for grants all year round. They have their own grant money, the nonprofits. I don't think we need to include them in helping our businesses. I know you keep saying it can be dropped down, maybe we can do it on a point system, but I just think they don't need to be included right now.
And I think with like a lot of the stuff that we have on here, we can let them apply. That doesn't mean we have to give it to them. And we only may have 6 people apply.
And it could, it could very well be that we could find somebody that does want to give to nonprofits that are struggling. And we say, hey, we have these applications
Get
for
your
people.
market.
Right.
We have these applications for
That's a
people
good
that are
idea.
struggling.
I just don't want to.
I don't want
No, I
anybody
like
to
that
get
idea.
excluded.
I like
I'm
that
not-
idea.
Well, and I could see like some, I'm a member of a nonprofit, and I could see our nonprofit I will bring it to our board, and we will likely donate if it's
Yeah.
approved.
So that's
We will
a good
likely
thing.
donate to that cause, and we may decide something like we want to earmark for
We may
this
create
type of
another account for
cause.
donations that are specific for nonprofit.
Or for, I may want, we may decide we only want to donate to a bakery. We may decide we only want to donate to a dog, rescue or, something like that. So
there's a lot of things happening. The other thing is that our nonprofits that do rely a lot on our local money that isn't here now, they're struggling. A lot of our dude ranches that I know that's outside the county, but they're struggling with their animals and their horses, and so there's a bigger picture going on here. That if we truly want to do something, then it's about getting the information, figuring out how to wisely spend our money, and maybe try to find other avenues to help in a bigger picture. Because we are a board that agreed to focus on the economy of Bandera, whether it's something that we use this money for, or we can go out and find other means to do that, which we have done in the past. So Darcy, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm talking a whole lot more than I am.
Yeah,
It's
let's
just like, I'm
let's
gonna sit
kinda
up and be
move-
quiet.
Let's move forward so that we're not here all night. Go ahead.
So I thought also something that we could do fairly cheaply would be get the information out, and I know that I had talked to Lynn about this too, but get the information out where people could get the loans, where people could get grants, and how can we do this on a budget? And of course, depending on how much of the 100,000 we decide to use, maybe as a second wave of something, as we're not gonna have a ton of money left over. Maybe that's the second wave of things that we do. But add it into the city website, get that information out there, or send them to another one. Like Kendall County has a fantastic website where it's not just focused on Kendall County, but if we just add a link from the city and send them over to Kendall County's website, it has all the loans they can get, all the grants they can get, and I mean, that's just
So the
something.
city
for
website has
business.
a lot of that on the front page. The
Not
other
your
piece to
EDC.
that, okay, I have one thing I want to add on to, but, and I saw your hand go up, so one thing that Darcy brought to me when she was, we talked about, what we had already decided as a board and as a phase 2, because we don't have a lot of money. She asked if maybe there was something that we could do to prepare for the next set of funding coming down. We'll have all these applications. Somebody's got to rate and rank them. When we hired Megan as our admin, we had very specific hours and very specific duties for her, which we are encroaching on that terribly ever since she got hired. So, and she's been wonderful about it. But if we could get more of a clerical type, not like a professional admin, someone that was able to just kind of go through the applications, put it into an Excel spreadsheet. If it was somebody that we could hire at a part-time basis, if and when the round 2 comes down, that it would be somebody that maybe we don't have any money to get out, but they could be someone that could be the communication, giving links to, this is where you got to get this is how you can get this money, more of communication. And we've got tons of files that need to be like scanned and backed up and reorganized because they just need to be done. So if it's something that we could hire and have somebody at City Hall, doing kind of working between both as a part-time basis during round 2 or phase 2 or something like that. That was something that Darcy had brought up to me, and I was thinking, she said, I don't even know if we can hire anybody. I said, well, we'd just be another admin type, which we can do for very special projects. So keep that in mind as something that might, because most of us are pretty maxed out on our timing. So go ahead, Lynn.
Well, going along with what Darcy said, if you go to that Texas Economic Development Council website, they have so much information on there on every funding out there that's available for a small business. And then also the Garland City website is excellent. You've really got to check that one out, Tony. It's oh, you did? Oh, okay. So it's for resources update and business assistant links for COVID-19, and they have it's a beautiful website with links on everything that you can imagine, all of the funding out there. So that I think we should.
So I guess. Okay.
No, I'm finished.
Okay. So what we're talking about is a phase 2 to help with the recovery mode. The recon, all of this is part of that. We may not have money to help stimulate the economy, but we could help our little businesses through this type of assistance. If we have an application and we know what their needs are and help go find information for them that they fit into this mold where they're only 1099s or they only have one employee or they whatever, that we have somebody that is research-based and can do that kind of thing and do we're getting applications, we have emails, we can do an email list out with information as we find it for them to help themselves. But we need to think bigger than just our budget as for doing that. Anyway, when Darcy said that, it sparked a whole process that I went through in my mind of the things that could possibly be done with that idea and taking it to the next level. Communication and advertising fund. Okay, so we're 2 hours into the meeting. We have just to recap, we have officially accepted the board from the motions made by the board before. We have added the fact that we're going to do the application, we'll send it out. And then we discussed the criteria so that we have the information on the application on how we would sort it out and who would vote at the top and all the way down. And there was another motion and that just my mind went like, Darcy made the motion.
Ask the attorney about the donation.
Money, don't forget about free money.
Donating money. So I will send an email out to our attorney and get feedback on that. Lynn?
So where is the eligibility and qualifications gonna come in? Where are we gonna be distinctive in that?
You can be distinctive now if you would like.
I think we need to discuss, who, you know, like what I was saying, that they have to have a retail storefront, you know, to qualify for the funding.
So we gave examples on when that may or may not be applicable.
Okay, so, but
And we
can-
didn't want to rule anybody out. We want to think of it like a sorting motion, right? Didn't we agree on that? We want to
Yes,
think of it like a
we all do.
point system, a sorting thing. So let's talk about who do you want on the top and then go down.
Okay, so I think the storefront should be at the top. I think businesses with storefronts should be at the top. I think the businesses that had to close and were not able to operate at all should be
So
at
they
the
would be
top.
non-essential?
Yes.
Must not.
And had to close.
Right.
Yeah, had to close, because you had some, well, okay, that's right, the non-essentials first. And then the businesses that had to close. I think those should be at the top.
I disagree with the story. That's just me.
I don't.
Yeah.
And my thinking on that is, well, can I speak? My thinking on that is we want to try to keep our storefronts open because we don't want to be a ghost town. We don't, I mean, I know it's not gonna save a business, but it may pay their rent for another month or help with their
It's exactly
utilities or
focus.
their water.
Yes.
I mean, in the top, I mean, for the way we've done it, and it's not gonna be over $1,000, everybody should flow in. Hopefully, that will qualify. But I do think the storefront should be on the top because you sure don't want a bunch of empty buildings. That's what I'm so
Once
scared
that
of.
starts happening, it's,
It's bad.
Playing devil's advocate, which I can't come up with any on my own, so there may not be any. But if we had a storefront that was deemed essential, they're gonna be, deemed not, if they have a storefront deemed non-essential, they're gonna flow to the top, no matter what. So the salons don't collect sales tax, but, so do we wanna add the criteria sales tax, or do we care? If they have a storefront and they had to close because they're deemed non-essential, do we care about sales tax collection?
I would say no.
That would be my question.
I would
Yeah,
say
that would,
no.
I mean, that would be my
Nail
answer too.
salons.
Nails.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, you don't want anything
Yeah.
closed. You don't.
Right,
right.
I'm just saying, because earlier we were kind of focusing on that when we had a
Correct.
conversation. I just want to make sure everybody was sort of still.
I
On
mean,
that
we
same
like
page,
sales tax, yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, but
But we
Yeah.
also want our businesses, our buildings to be
I mean, look at
occupied.
our salons and
Right.
this.
When people come into town, you want it to see like, you know, we have, we actually have things. that
So,
we
right.
do.
if I could continue, automobile maintenance, you know, I mean, we'll be able to put those in a category. So I do want
I think
to,
they were considered essential.
I was
yeah,
just
they
gonna
were,
say
they
those
were,
are- they
so
were
they were,
considered
okay.
essential.
So what I do want not to be eligible is, national chains. I don't want the national chains in the city of Bandera to be eligible for.
So some of them are franchises. So a lot of people think of them, like Mini Mart is a locally owned,
And they've been able to
Business.
stay.
they're Mini Mart. They
Uh-huh.
have been able to be, I'm just giving you an
Yes,
example.
ma'am.
I'm just giving you
Okay,
an
that's fine.
example of something like that,
Okay.
that is still locally owned.
Okay, so no national chains, these are the ones that are not eligible. Financial institutions, I don't think they should be eligible. I don't really think RV parks should be eligible. Apartment complexes, and home-based businesses, I don't think they should be eligible.
Okay, so you said that before, and then we gave you some examples of when it would be applicable, and then you said, okay. So you.
For home-based businesses? Oh, you mean the landscape?
No, I'm not saying that they would.
Yeah,
I'm
not that
just
they'd be
saying-
at the top, okay, that's fine.
So so let's talk about, so we've got people with storefronts, they were forced to close regardless of whether or not they were having sales tax. Who's the next in line? Who would be after that?
The
Non-essentials.
non-essentials.
Non-essentials and storefront need to be at the top.
Mhm.
That was number
That
one.
was number
That's number one. So once we exhaust all of those, who's next?
I would say
Who else do
his-
you want? If we have any left over, who's your next?
I would say historic Bandera businesses.
like the ones that own historic buildings, or the ones we need historic?
Like
Around.
established, yeah, it's long time established.
Define long term.
Oh, 100 years, 99 years. We have one that's gonna celebrate its 100-year birthday.
Keith, we have one.
One, once.
More than 20 years.
What is it?
More than 20.
Okay, any discussions against, pro, whatever? I don't necessarily agree.
Well, I think they're gonna be non-essential buildings, non-essential occupants anything, so I feel like they're already gonna be there.
in that category.
Especially if they have a storefront.
Yeah,
I do think
So-
the national chains, so like DQ is a national chain, but it's locally owned, so I don't wanna, make them not eligible, but
But they're
They were
essential.
essential.
they're essential, so we should make them way lower on the list.
So all
because
the
they're
essentials that
business.
didn't close are gonna trickle down.
They need to be far lower on the list.
Yeah, I think so.
But still eligible.
So let me ask you, so I don't know if we have any, like, non-essential forced to close with a storefront. So there are some that, like a lot of our restaurants, they weren't necessarily considered, they're sort of in between. They were considered essential, but they couldn't do full service. You know what I mean? So they haven't been able to do full staff. They're not meeting their, that's the reason OST did what they did. So they're still considered essential. They have storefronts, but they have not been able to do the business model that has proven to them to be successful.
I don't think we have a lot of non-essentials that weren't able to open up. I think we're gonna be able, whoever, they're gonna,
So let me explain it again.
so then,
So
we
we
can
have
do,
people that are essential.
Right.
OST.
I understood what you said.
Okay,
So
but
they
what
can
you
come
said
further.
didn't say.
They can come down further.
I'm asking where they go.
Could we look at their percentage of loss? I mean, if you're shut down completely, you're at 100%. You're not making anything. But there's the restaurants who are still able to generate some sort of. So that could be a way to determine if or and how much funding.
I don't think
Does
we're
that
ready
make
to
sense?
finish this conversation. I think we've got our number one.
Yeah.
I think we all got our number one, and then we're all over the place after that. So, I would like to say, I'll go ahead, Darcy, finish what you were thinking. I don't want to cut you off.
Well, I was just thinking, take like the Chimpy Coop that was eligible. They were forced to close because it's technically a bar, but then they opened some for food service outside the business. So if it was eligible, I would still want to give the money just because
So
they
they,
were forced to close.
so they don't qualify as the mayor, but let's stay with that scenario because it is a very valid scenario. They weren't forced to close. To the point where they said, TABC, you can give curbside liquor now. They adjusted the laws in order for them to, if they served food, they could give curbside. They chose to close down and then reopen. But TJ's is doing that. So TJ's is doing, you know what I'm saying? So, they're still considered essential. They were just forced to change their entire business model, which is kind of what I was saying earlier.
Yeah, I think it just trickles down and then you put in the essentials at the end. And then whoever qualifies for them, then we do it.
I
That's
think
all
so.
it is. It's not essential.
I think what you were asking
Yes.
for the
And
percentage of
then-
loss to
Yes.
go.
I think that's,
Like what Andrew
yes.
said, I
Well,
like
I
the
Just ask the question.
and then we can determine.
The only requirement is that they operate in the city. If they pay sales tax, they're paying in their city sales tax.
And so,
If
like,
they're not,
OST
they're operating in the city.
Right, so OST is a prime example of someone that tried it. They were not getting the business, and they chose to close down, pay their employees to do some maintenance and clean up and things inside, doing some things, and so they're trying to pay their employees with no income. So, we've got a lot of anomalies. I think we're small enough to figure it out. I think it sounds like we're all on the same page. I don't think anybody's just really digging their heels on something that's not feasible, but this was all gonna come out as far as criteria. Rhonda?
And we're not doing food trucks and things like that. That's
No.
the same, right? We
Do
are,
we need to say that?
I want to make sure that.
Yeah.
I would deem that as the non-home based or the home based business, and if they came out, I mean, if they applied, then they would fall somewhere. I mean, they're, yeah, we don't have a huge, we have some, but we don't have a huge food truck, so to speak. So. Did I see your hand go up? No, okay. Very good.
And
All right,
then-
let's start to wrap. We're
Okay,
we're
we're gonna
approaching
wrap
9
this up.
o'clock.
I
so
do
I'm
want to make sure that we have
not
that.
gonna cut you off, Lynn. You're gonna get your moment. I promise. Laura, had your hand up first.
I was gonna say, I was gonna suggest that we wrap up.
Okay, well, I'm not ready for you then.
So I
Let's
do
get
want
ready
to
to make
include,
motion.
I do want to include that clawback clause. I do want to
We
include
have
that.
a call back
Okay,
and,
okay.
and that would be.
I just want to make sure that that's in there.
That is something that we didn't talk about as far as what do they have to meet in order to have to pay this back. So I think that's something that we can think about, come back to the table.
Mhm.
We will be having, at 6 o'clock next Thursday, okay with everybody? We could probably, maybe there at 5:30.
No.
6 o'clock.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I know some of our schedules, I just didn't know if our personal schedules have changed. much.
6 is pushing.
So we're gonna do,
Ron, what about you?
Yeah, Peyton can come and sit over there because we have to go drop all her stuff off when I get off work. And that's at the time.
Okay. So it is my impression that,
The uniforms herself, the uniforms, and she's put out her locker.
it's my impression that the mayor said that if we met, came up with information to give to the council, that they would meet this time and that they would listen to it and give us feedback on specifics that maybe they did or did not like. And so I think that we can meet on Thursday to finalize the criteria based on the application. By the time we'll have it out to everybody.
Good.
Okay, Lynn, what else?
Can I make another motion? I'd like to make a motion to enter into a possible 380 agreement with the city of Bandera for additional COVID-19 disaster relief funding.
What's a 380 agreement?
What's an agreement?
We need a
that is
second, right?
Between the, yes, second. Is there any, one
I'll
second? that?
second for.
Well,
I need
you
to
already
reread
seconded it because you talked,
Alright.
so that's the way that works. Either stay silent, if you even ask a question, you seconded it. So,
What's a 380 agreement?
Well, I'll let Tony describe the 380
I'm
agreement,
not
but it is an
prepared to describe
agreement.
it,
Okay,
so
okay.
I'm not-
Well, it is an agreement between the city and EDC, and the attorney would draw it up. And I spoke to the mayor briefly about her considering, the city considering to match the funding. And I talked to her about that today, and I asked her if I could make a motion to that effect, and she said that I could. So that way it opens it up for her to do what she needs to do with the city's budget to see what they can match for to put in the EDC funds. So I
So
enter
I
that motion.
personally thought this was, I mean, we sat here and waited for the city council to initiate a resolution because we serve at the pleasure of the council. They're the ones that dictate this. They're the ones that approach us for things like this. It was my understanding that the city council was going to make a resolution of how much they could do and then approach us with the 380. So
I'm
if
just
she said
saying,
otherwise, then I
and
don't,
she
I mean,
did. She said to
I
go
don't
ahead
have
and make a
any
motion.
information on this, so I don't know if it would fly or not.
Well, could we,
It would be
So
nice.
any other questions? Lynn's the only one that can answer this because I've had no discussion.
all right, could we amend the motion upon approval of the attorneys, both the EDC and the city?
I don't think that's necessary, Laura. You can just make a
Well,
motion
I'm
like
trying,
that.
I'm trying to cover our bases.
Yeah.
That's all I'm trying to do.
If we're gonna enter into an agreement, a 3A agreement, we can guarantee it's not gonna be without our attorney.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's a
Before
good.
we even make a motion to do it.
So restate your motion.
To say what?
I just read.
Okay, I'm gonna read my motion again.
Yeah,
I
just
thought
read
you
it
said
again.
to
No, I
read,
just want
to
listen to it.
change it.
No,
Okay.
no, I'm sorry.
Okay. I make a motion to enter into a possible 380 agreement with the city of Bandera for additional COVID-19 disaster relief funding.
Okay, so I would respectfully ask you to reword that to negotiate with, that the EDC negotiate with the city to, because it's like, I don't want to put in there that we're going to enter into it. I would like to have, like figure out,
Discussion.
yeah, I mean,
Okay, well, y'all don't want the money?
That's what they do. We're trying to
I don't,
make it all legal.
I'm just saying that I don't know
I
enough
think
about it.
going into the 380 would make it legal, Laura, but I can withdraw the motion totally then. That's what y'all
The
want.
attorneys won't let us do it if it's not legal.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, and if
Yes.
there's,
So I
if the
realize,
mayor is
let me just tell you what my
willing
hang up, my
to
hang up
match
is
the
specific
funds.
words 380.
Mine
That's
too.
my only hang up. So
Okay,
if it's
well-
more along the lines of approaching the city to see if we can't join in, like somehow do this together to get more funds from the city, whether it be a 380 or whatever the attorneys decide it is,
All right.
then I would be more comfortable with that. But I'm not going voting.
Right, and if I
That's all
can
I
just add
described.
to that, when I spoke to the mayor, she said that that would have to be a 380 agreement. And that was the reason why I made the motion that way.
Okay, and
Okay.
again, you're privy to information that none of the rest of us are.
I
You
met with
just
the
have-
mayor, yes, and I'm making that
And
motion.
respectfully, I have met with the mayor plenty of times and understood information that clearly was not what was
Okay,
happening.
well, we'll see
So-
what. Okay,
Okay, so I mean, the motion has been made, it's been seconded by Darcy, I'm taking a vote for those in favor. Most in favor, those opposed? Those opposed?
I'm not opposed, it's just the wording.
So Laura's opposed, Rhonda, Darcy, Lee, Lynn, and Andrea are in favor. Okay. Any other motions? Any other, okay.
I'm pretty much we adjourn.
second.
EDC meeting adjourned at 8:50.
Woo!
Just kidding.
Thank you. We got a lot accomplished. Beer time. Oh, that's still on.
6 o'clock next Thursday, we never finished that conversation.
6 o'clock.
Clean out lockers and keep stuff, drop stuff off.
Well, if you've got to do it at 6.
We have a decision for one more.
Y'all are